My mother's scream still echoes in my head. "You're not taking anything from here. Hand over that bag." I tightened my grip on the handle. It wasn't money, just clothes. But in her eyes, even that was theft. My father didn't wait. His fist tangled in my hair, dragging me across the floor. My knees scraped tile. My sister watched from the staircase, her lips curled in triumph. They shoved me out the door like I was nothing, a child exiled from the empire I'd been born into. But before I left, I turned back. "You'll regret this," I told them, and I meant every word. It wasn't always this way. I used to believe in them, my parents, the house, the idea of family. As a child, I defended them to anyone who whispered about their favoritism. "They love us equally," I'd insist. Even when they gave my sister the larger room, the better gifts, the praise I worked twice as hard for. I thought it was my fault, that if I was better, louder, brighter, they'd see me. But love, I learned, wasn't blind. It was selective, and I was never their choice. The will was supposed to be my turning point. 10 million left by my grandfather. Finally, recognition that I wasn't invisible. But when the lawyer read the papers, my parents didn't flinch. They signed over my inheritance to my sister without hesitation, calling it what's best for the family. And then they told me to leave, as if blood didn't bind me, as if I hadn't spent years bending myself into shapes they still refused to love. That day, as I packed my bag, I realized the truth. I wasn't family. I was fuel. Something to burn for their golden child. Pain is sharp, but clarity is sharper. I didn't cry when they pushed me out. I didn't beg for scraps. I promised myself one thing. If they saw me as an outsider, then I would play that role to perfection. I studied, I worked, I built connections they didn't know I had. Silent meetings, late nights, contracts signed in rooms they would never enter. And quietly, I started pulling threads. The trust fund my sister flaunted, I tracked every movement of the money. The businesses my father bragged about, I knew which debts he'd hidden. My mother's charities? Shells for her spending. They thought they'd discarded me. In truth, they'd handed me every weapon I needed. The first cut was financial. A whisper in the right ear of the right bank, and my father's credit line shrank overnight. He blamed the market. He had no idea it was me. The second was social. My mother's foundation suddenly faced an audit. Donations dried up. Her name, once whispered with admiration, now carried suspicion. And my sister, the one who preened in designer dresses bought with my inheritance? I let her discover that luxury comes with strings. The trust she thought was hers had loopholes, clauses my grandfather wrote in, ones I knew how to activate. When the bills came due, she found herself asset-rich but cash-poor. Her friends scattered. Her fiancé backed out. Piece by piece, I dismantled the throne they built her on. The confrontation came not in anger, but in silence. Another family dinner. Their table, their house. They invited me back, perhaps thinking I'd forgotten, perhaps thinking they could still control me. I sat across from them, calm, while they circled me like predators losing teeth. My father demanded to know if I'd interfered with his business. My mother hissed that I'd ruined her reputation. My sister spat accusations, calling me a leech, a vulture. I listened. I let them claw. And then I spoke. "You remember the night you dragged me out of this house?" I asked softly. They froze. "You told me I had nothing, that I was nothing." I leaned forward. "But here's the truth. You built your kingdom on sand, and I was the tide." I placed a folder on the table, proof of debts, proof of frozen accounts, proof that their empire had already collapsed. My father's hands shook as he flipped the pages. My mother's face drained of color. My sister's voice caught in her throat. This was the regret I promised them, delivered with precision. I left before dessert, walked out the same door they once threw me through, but this time my steps were steady. Behind me, their world crumbled. The wealth they stole, the power they flaunted, the favoritism they weaponized, it was all dust now. I didn't need their house. I didn't need their approval. I had something sharper: control. And as I looked back one last time, I smiled. They thought throwing me out would erase me. They never realized it would set me free. What happened next wasn't rage, it was justice. And justice, when served cold, tastes sweeter than any inheritance.